The 31st.
The United States cannot make peace in the Middle East. Only the parties themselves can do that.
Any Palestinian will be there to represent the PLO.
We will not speak peace. And I wish to thank everybody.
Worst fires in U.S. history.
A significant decrease of ozone.
Will he run?
My shortcoming.
Should have been caught.
From NBC News, this is Sunday Today with Garrick Utley, Mary Alice Williams, and Al Roker.
Good morning. Glad you're with us once again on this Sunday morning. We all know it's that time of the year when you see our friends here. We're going to polish them up a little bit later this morning, make them shine and sparkle. We have a lot in store in the next hour and a half. First of all, the top story of the day we'll be looking at are the preparations for the Middle East Peace Conference and also the Bush-Gorbachev meeting, which will occur this coming week. That and a lot more coming up here on Sunday Today.
And it is an hour earlier than your body clock is telling you it is, but for 81 counties in Indiana who never went to daylight savings time in the first place, but that's another story.
And there are a couple of them who actually switched to Central Time. So it must be kind of confusing there. Well, you know what else is confused? Mother Nature. She's not sure whether it's winter or spring. We've got warm weather in the east, flooding in Texas to Kentucky, and a major winter storm out west. Garrett?
Al? Well, this coming Wednesday will, of course, be a historic day, an important one. Israel and its enemies sit down at a conference table in Madrid. It's hoped they will talk to each other, that no one's going to get angry and temperamental and walk right out. The fact that it's happening at all is due mainly to the extraordinary efforts made by the United States to get the two sides to come together. The subject, of course, is lasting peace in the Middle East. The odds against it succeeding are high. A major reason is two peoples who claim the same land. That's our cover story today, the Middle East Peace Conference and what it could mean for us.
And inside the cover page of Sunday Today, meet a minister on a diamond crusade. All he wants to do is bring the word of God to the ballpark, but he's striking out. We'll go to Salem, Massachusetts and meet some contemporary witches and hear terrifying stories from an overlooked group of abused people, teenagers. Listen.
He kicked me. I was sitting on the floor, and he kicked me right in the stomach and walked out of my room. I mean, he kicked me so hard, I couldn't breathe.
I have a big 6-foot by 6-foot bed sheet, and what I do before the game, I just pray. I said, God, have a home run, hit the sign.
But witchcraft is not Satanism. It's not something that has been left behind. It's something that's always been here. It will always be here. And when I started to speak out, it frightened people.
Well, can't wait for that, hardly wait for that. Witches on Sunday Today. Also this morning, the ozone layer, as we've heard, it's getting thinner, what to do about it. And we'll also meet a handicapped man who challenges the forces of nature face-to-face in a kayak. But first we get the news this morning, and Mary Alice has that.
And as the start of the Arab-Israeli peace conference gets closer, in Israel, political jockeying is intense between the right-wing and more moderate factions. The Israeli cabinet met this morning to hash out last-minute preparations. Martin Fletcher reports from Tel Aviv.
Up to the last moment, Israel's trying to put up a united front, but it's tough. Prime Minister Shamir shoved aside his foreign minister and will lead the delegation to the peace conference himself. In doing so, he wins the confidence of the right wing.
He will never, in his life, he will never give up any part of Eretz Israel.
But for the left wing, Shamir going to Madrid is the worst possible news.
The feeling is that the Prime Minister is going to Madrid with a feeling as if it is some kind of a punishment to Israel, instead of viewing it as a historic opportunity to reach peace.
An OK crowd of 20,000 turned out with a message to Shamir that the majority of Israelis want to give up land for peace. But on the same spot Monday, the right-wingers will gather to give their message: no land for peace, only peace for peace. Palestinians, too, are voicing their objections to the peace conference. Extremists are threatening to heat up the uprising against the Israelis, as well as, in their words, make life hell for the Palestinians who dare talk to Israel. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
And the anticipation is mounting as organizers of the Arab-Israeli Peace Conference work out details for the historic meeting, which begins Wednesday in Madrid. Bob Abernethy reports.
The conference is to open here at the former Palace of Spanish Kings, now under massive and heavily armed guard. In all, 12,000 civil guards and police have been mobilized to protect the participants in this peace conference. Meanwhile, 4,500 foreign technicians and reporters are setting up to cover the talks, more than at any other previous international conference. In all, 7,000 visitors are expected. At the lavish Soviet embassy Tuesday, President Bush and Soviet President Gorbachev will talk. They are the conference co-sponsors, and this will be their first meeting since the failed coup of last August broke up the former Soviet Union and further disrupted its economy. Spokesman Igor Malyshenko says Gorbachev will make a specific new request for emergency aid.
Well, I think that there will be some specific requests. It's more, we can assume it just from the situation.
Of the peace conference, both the U.S. and the Soviets have made it clear, although they would like broad agreements, anything Israel and any of its Arab neighbors can agree to will be considered a success. Bob Abernethy, NBC News, Madrid.
A hint of more scandal in the saga of BCCI. The New York Times says drug dealers may have been tipped off to the U.S. investigation of the bank, triggering withdrawals of at least $10 million. According to the Times, there is suspicion the bank was alerted by sources inside the U.S. government. The World Series is down to one game. The Minnesota Twins evened the series at home last night with a 4-3 win over the Atlanta Braves. Kirby Puckett led off the bottom of the 11th inning with a home run, giving the home team the winning run. The 7th and deciding game is tonight in the Minneapolis Metrodome. And that's the news.
And said with a big smile. Now, Al Roker, correct me if I'm wrong. 1 week ago this morning, we were talking about the World Series. And did not someone named Mary Alice said she was just as much for the Braves as for Minnesota?
Yes, she did.
I am, and isn't that wonderful how evenly matched they are, that they have both won 3 games?
But now you're coming down on the side of the Twins.
Well, it's in the Humphrey Dome, you know.
The Minnesota genes come back.
Hey, there you go.
Well, what do you have for us?
Well, we've got a real mixed bag today. Good morning, everybody. Take a look. We've got some very diverse weather. We've got heavy mountain snows from Idaho, Wyoming, into Nevada, Oklahoma. We're talking about 1 to 2 inches of snow, 1 to 2 feet of snow in that area. And then as you move further to the east, you're talking about some very, very heavy weather stretching from Texas all the way on up into Nebraska with the risk of very, very severe weather. They're talking about 5 inches more of rain in areas in Texas that have already gotten 5 inches, so a lot of flooding there. As you work your way further east, showers and thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast stretching all the way on up into the Great Lakes and interior New England. The East Coast, after some morning fog burns off from Washington all the way up to New England, we should be looking at partly sunny skies, very warm conditions for this time of year. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods. Today, we expect a high of 75 degrees in Washington. After the fog burns off, it'll be 62, and they'll have some showers in Denver, 47 in Seattle, and expect showers there as well, 85 in Miami. And we'll have more a little bit later. Garrick?
Thanks, Al. Next, a look at some facts of life. As Israel and its Arab neighbors get ready to talk, we'll see why these facts, Israeli communities built on occupied land, could be a big roadblock on the path to peace.
It's Grand Central Station. It's Carnegie Hall. It's a late-night bistro and a banquet hall for 50. It's a GE Monogram kitchen. With GE Monogram appliances of such dramatic beauty and original style, they have no equal. So with Monogram appliances, your kitchen can be everything you ever dreamed it could be. Because you may call it a kitchen, but at GE, we know it's really your living room.
Victory comes in a moment, but excellence is built over time, performing again and again. Over the past 50 years, that's what has earned Northwestern Mutual Life the best record for financial strength, combined with top financial performance. For our policy owners, it's meant unsurpassed security, year after year. Isn't that the kind of strength and security you're looking for? Northwestern Mutual Life.
Just how realistic is the audio system in the Lexus LS 400?
Seniors save 30% at choice hotels like Quality, Comfort, Clarion, and Sleep just by calling ahead.
Boy, what I won't do to save a buck.
Seniors save 30% by calling 1-800-4CHOICE to reserve a room. Rooms are limited. Call today.
You know, I grew up thinking that nothing had more iron than spinach. But ounce for ounce, prunes have the same amount, and they're a much better snack.
Sweet, delicious California prunes. Find out how good they really are.
If there is a single issue that holds the key to peace in the Middle East, it is the question of land. Who lives where? Israeli settlers have been building on Palestinian land ever since the Six-Day War back in 1967, when Israel captured huge chunks of Arab territory. And with each passing day, Israel builds more settlements there, raising the stakes for the Arabs who will sit down at the peace table. Stan Bernard reports from the occupied territories that the principle of land for peace is a central issue, but it is highly unlikely that Israel will return to its pre-1967 borders.
Efrat, 2,700 feet above sea level in the hills outside of Jerusalem on the Israeli-occupied West Bank. It is a 7-year-old settlement, but this is no collection of hastily piled stones turned into shelters. These are duplex and triplex houses with 600 families, schools, shops, and even a pizza parlor. Some of the houses here sell for $180,000, but would be far more expensive if they were inside of Israel's borders. Efrat is largely a community of upwardly mobile Orthodox religious professionals. These girls are learning a song about trees and earth and sky, which has been interpreted to mean they have a right to this land. These are not children of impoverished refugees. Her name is Batya Pressler.
I was born in the USA in New Jersey.
I'm from Forest Hills.
I was born in California in Palo Alto.
Only one of the 4 was born in Israel. They have little memory of another home in another country and feel safe here on the West Bank.
I see New York as a more dangerous place. I can walk around here at night and do whatever I want. In New York, it's pretty dangerous to walk around at night. I mean, every place is dangerous, but when you live somewhere, you don't look at it as such a dangerous place.
Palestinians build and repair their houses, are working on expanding Efrat and scores of other settlements with modern construction equipment. In the Arab village of Nebi Elias, the work goes much more slowly on the renovation of this mosque. They have been at it for 5 years. Muhammad Halef is 30, born here, and so was 61-year-old Rushdie Al-Alyan, who now speaks fluent Hebrew. He told producer Carrie Glasser of his humiliation as others decide how and where he will live. The Israeli government takes the land, our land, builds on it, on our backs. I feel bad and can't do anything about it. What can we do? They will close us in, surround us. I don't have another place to go. Arabs can't get a license to build or expand a house. I've been waiting too long for peace. What began as a nibble of West Bank land after the 1967 Six-Day War has turned into a policy of large and expensive bites, complete with a road network so settlers don't have to drive through dangerous Palestinian villages. Billions of dollars have been spent to build and support these settlements, while budgets have been cut on towns and villages within Israel. In the absence of a peace agreement, this is the Israeli policy, the continuing expansion of the population on the West Bank and Gaza. Israel is redrawing its borders. This past week, and after Israel accepted the invitation to the Madrid Peace Conference, the respected Jerusalem Post wrote that it would take only 13% of the West Bank to keep most of the settlers where they are. There are more than 100,000 settlers on the West Bank in Gaza, pushing 1.5 million Arabs. Far too many settlers to have a repeat of the painful Yamit incident in 1982, when Israel returned the Sinai village of 5,000 back to the Egyptians as part of the peace treaty with Anwar Sadat. The majority left quietly, satisfied with government payments for the move and new housing. But some had to be dragged out by the Israeli army. The settlement was turned into what it is today, a pile of rubble. And today, many settlers say they cannot accept the principle of trading land for peace. Yisrael Harel of the Ofra settlement.
Well, if Israel will be pressed to retreat from this place, then it's not going to be any peace.
And back in Efrat, Robert Ehrlich.
My life here and my children's life will be here, and my grandchildren will be here also.
Linda Wolbermsky, originally from Canada, would not want to leave her home, but believes peace is a prize with a price.
I don't think that I'm opposed to the idea of land for peace, but I think it's on both sides. I think the Arabs have to give up more than they want. I think the Israelis are going to have to give up some things as well.
In this setting, it seems fit that even children invoke the Bible to prove their right to the land.
God tells Abraham to come to this land. He brings him here, and he tells him this land is going to be his, and it's always going to be his, and for his children after him.
This shepherd is a living argument against that Old Testament claim. For Sunday Today, Stan Bernard, NBC News, in Efrat on the West Bank.
And when we return, a closer look at what's on the table when the participants sit down in Madrid.
These are remarkable cars, and I've left all this space to show you why. First, Dodge Spirit and Plymouth Acclaim are the lowest priced 6-passenger cars in the world, even with an airbag and all the goodies you see here. But okay, you want to spruce it up, so you start adding options: air, automatic, 4-speaker stereo. When you're through, you'll find that Spirit and Acclaim, with all this, are still the lowest priced 6-passenger cars on the planet.
Now, drive for the gold with up to $1,000 cash back on select cars.
At BASF, we don't make the house, we make it warmer. We don't make the suit, we make it racier. We don't make the meal, we make it healthier. We don't make the music, we make it clearer. At BASF, we don't make a lot of the products you buy, we make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF, the spirit of innovation.
This diary chronicles a spree of kidnapping, murder, and rape. The man who wrote it claims to be part of a child pornography ring that operated in Nebraska and Iowa.
They drug his body outside where they poured gasoline on it and burned him.
If he's telling the truth, the man who wrote this diary could break one of the most notorious crime rings in Iowa history.
Going on this very moment, and some poor child is going through...
I'm Jim Strickland. I recently sat down for an exclusive interview with the man who wrote this diary. His story this week on News Center 13 at 10.
From the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Something's in there. The people under the stairs. They're here. They're real.
Can't get out. No one ever has.
Watch your step. Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs. Rated R. Starts Friday, November 1st.
We've just seen that report from Israel, the occupied territories, the situation on the ground as we move closer to the Middle East Peace Conference in Madrid. We now want to get another perspective as to what will happen when the two sides face off on Wednesday in the Spanish capital. Edward Said, professor at Columbia University in New York City this morning. He's a former member of the Palestine National Council. Good morning, Professor. Thanks for coming in. What does happen on Wednesday? Both sides are talking tough. Do you see any danger that one or the other will walk out?
No, I don't at all. I think that for the Palestinians, it's an important opportunity, a unique opportunity to present our case as a people, as a nation, before the international community, and above all, to press our claims for national self-determination and, above all, the end of occupation, which is the principal problem facing us.
Now, as we know, the Israelis are sending a hardline delegation. Shamir himself will be at the head of it. But also some of the Palestinians have been speaking up, members of the delegation. One said that, in effect, yes, they are representing the PLO, which is anathema to Israel. Isn't that tempting fate?
No, not at all. I mean, I think what we're really looking at is a series of what I would consider to be sort of juvenile actions by Israel to deny the existence of a national authority for the Palestinian people. We are a people. We are a nation. We're not just a random collection of aliens, as the Israelis call us, on the land of Israel. We have generations of unbroken residents there. And I think what you're really dealing with here is, for the first time, Israel having to face Palestinians speaking of their national rights. And this is something that they've tried to avoid for about 100 years. At last now they have to face up to the reality.
Now, Professor, as we get to the core of the real issues that will be faced there in Madrid, we've heard the phrase land for peace.
Yes.
Or peace for peace. There's a distinction here in terms of the perspective of the two sides, isn't there?
Yes. I mean, I think what the phrase peace for peace means to Palestinians is absolutely zero. We have no land, as in your previous news report that was mentioned. It's not a question of residence, it's a question of sovereignty. There are 2 million Palestinians on the West Bank and Gaza now who are being dominated and controlled by a brutal military occupation that denies them every conceivable right of assembly, right of representation, right to, lead a normal life. And the problem is that Israel wants to control the land for purely ideological reasons that go back to the Old Testament. So I think what we are saying is we have already, as Palestinians, have already recognized Israel. We have recognized the principles of 242 and 338, and we're waiting for the Israelis to catch up to the international reality.
Now, Professor, you say that Israel wants that land for purely historic, ideological reasons. They would also say there are security reasons, and that is what would have to be worked out in any possible agreement. But let's get back to a possible serious stumbling block, and that is the PLO role. Israel says the PLO has no role here, but isn't Yasser Arafat really going to be calling a lot of these shots, and isn't that a problem?
No, I don't think so. I think this has been clear from the very beginning. As I said, it's just a matter of trying to, do a kind of ostrich thing, of stick your head in the sand. Everybody knows that there is only one national authority for the Palestinian people, and that is the PLO. We've met all the silly requirements posed by the Israelis. We've satisfied the United States, and the candidates in my list of delegates, is a very impressive one, which represents, I would say, the broad spectrum of Palestinian national life. And I think this is where we are now. I don't think any walkouts or any of this other stuff is really to be taken very seriously.
Now, the United States has played a key role, Secretary of State Baker, principally in getting all these sides finally together on Wednesday at the peace table. What does the United States do now? Do you see them playing an important role behind the scenes? Should we be playing that role?
Absolutely. The United States has been not just a referee, but has been a participant in the Middle East for the last 5 decades. And as the principal supporter and subsidizer of Israel, the United States is in a unique position to bring Israel back to reality. I mean, there's been a kind of unconditional blank check given Israel to do whatever it wants. With the Bush-Baker procedure, I think there's been a change. Israel's role, beginning during the Iraq War, has been trimmed. And now Israel has to sit in front of its Arab neighbors and the Palestinian people and begin to say what it's never said. What are its boundaries? What are its expectations? What are its obligations to the region? It's never done that. So the United States plays not only a key role, but the absolutely essential role, I think.
Professor Edward Said, thank you very much for being with us today in New York City. Of course, they are going to be very tough and probably long negotiations in Madrid starting on Wednesday. Well, we've seen how religious belief impacts on politics, but what about religion and sports, freedom of speech, and yes, property rights? In a moment, we'll follow Reverend Guy Aubrey on his Diamond Crusade. He calls it. All he wants to do is put up a prayerful sign in the ballpark.
Sunday Today is brought to you in part by Charles Schwab, helping investors help themselves.
Today, Tektred Shoe Corporation announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Those figures for the meeting, you don't like them?
Some things are so reliable, They seem invisible.
Confusing, right? They're fine.
For the last 9 years,